Nice to meet you. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. Yeah, fairly quiet week after the end of the season, so yeah, I'm not too bad.
Any news for the new books? You wrote two wonderful books, and actually this time some Korean fans, I got some questions from Korean fans, and they really, I could feel they still remember your book in Korea.
Well, that's good. I'm really pleased to hear that. But no, nothing planned, I'm afraid. No, no, might be a while. Might be a while before I do another one, I'm afraid.
Yeah, because you are too busy at the moment, right?
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, I suppose I've written the two books that I wanted to write, really. And yeah, don't know what else I would do for a third one, but maybe one day, hopefully one day.
Okay, and we will talk about the next chapter of your book, because the mixer, the mixer finished. The last chapter of the mixer was Antonio Conte when he was at Chelsea, right?
Yeah. Feels a long time ago now.
Yeah, but very interesting. We can talk about the after that. And before we start, can you please just briefly, can you please introduce yourself to Korean fans who will be watching this interview, please?
Yeah, my name is Michael Cox. I'm a football writer for The Athletic, and I've written two books, one called The Mixer and one called Zonal Marking, which are both available in Korea.
All right. Let us start with the questions. For today's interview, we have two big parts. One is about Son, obviously, because South Korean fans' biggest interest is Son and Tottenham. So we'll talk about Son and Tottenham. I will ask you about those. And then we will talk about the tactics in general, in Premier League especially, in detail. He had three great managers in his time at Spurs: Pochettino and Mourinho, now Conte. I think he has a little bit different roles under each managers, because they all have, they have obviously different style of football, different tactics. So in tactical point of view, how do you think about his evolution under Poch, and then Mourinho, and then Conte?
Yeah, you're right. He's been a different type of player under those managers. I think the key in terms of his evolution really is the fact he's a little bit older, I think, as much as the managers. He wasn't a prolific goal scorer until relatively recently, and that's broadly true of lots of players. I think players tend to peak in terms of their goal scoring ability in their late 20s or maybe even later, which is what he's doing. But you're right, he was I think under Pochettino, he almost felt like a bit of an extra to the main action. Kane was the main man. Dele Alli had a great couple of seasons. Christian Eriksen was the main creator. And I always thought like Son would kind of chip in with goals every now and then. But it changed, I think, a little bit later. And under Mourinho, I think the counter-attacking style of play really suited Son. I think at times he was very dangerous in those situations. But I think Mourinho tends to leave a lot to chance. He tends to give his players lots of freedom. And I think what Conte's probably done is he's brought a little bit more structure to Tottenham's attacking play. And the relationship between Kane and Son, which was certainly there under previous managers, Mourinho certainly benefited from that. But I think that some of the combinations we've seen recently are a lot more maybe pre-planned and thought out on the training ground and carried out very well on the pitch. And I think that suits Son. I think he's a player who I imagine managers like him, because I think he probably follows instructions, he sticks to his task. And I think Conte is that kind of manager. He wants to know what he's going to get from players. And I think Son is suited to that.
Mourinho said that, in his press conference, Mourinho said once, he said that Son is not a striker, he's a winger. Obviously, we know that he's a winger, but under Conte, Conte himself said, I use 2 number 10 behind Kane. So Son basically played as one of 2 number 10 behind Kane. So Son is originally, when Son came to Tottenham, he was more like a winger, but now this season especially, he didn't play like a typical winger. How do you think about that? I mean, and he got the golden boot by that way. That is, I think, what is most impressive. How do you think about that in terms of tactics?
Yeah, I mean, his role's interesting. I mean, personally, I wouldn't really call him a number 10. I think he's somewhere between a number 10 and a wide player. I still think he's, I don't think of him as getting the ball in tight situations between the lines. I think of him as getting it out in space a little bit more near the flank. But it's certainly true. I mean, he's not a winger as such. I think of a winger as someone who really goes down the line, whereas Son has got more to his game. I suppose, he's a combination of a striker and a number 10 and a winger. That's the beauty of those positions in the Conte team. But he's found his own little role. I mean, you know what you're going to get from Son. And I mean, the obvious thing to say about him is he's so two-footed. He's the most two-footed player in the Premier League, I think, probably by quite some way. And I think that makes him unpredictable. And I think that means he's not easy to categorize. You don't think of him as, I don't know, someone like Arjen Robben would be a completely different player on the right compared to the left because he was so left-footed. Whereas Son, I think, can play roughly the same from either side. I think he's better from the left, but because he can go down the line or come inside on either flank, he's such a good all-rounder, so much variety to his play.
Yeah, that's just what you just said is perfectly linked to my next question. When you said he is not easy to categorize, right? And when I think about Son, I mean, it's not just because I'm Korean. It's hard to think about any similar player in the past with Son. Do you think, is there any, I mean, in terms of playing style or the tactical role, do you think is there any similar player with Son before in the Premier League or in Europe?
Yeah, it's a difficult one really to find an obvious equivalent for. I mean, I think there's something of the Sadio Mane in how two-footed he is. Although I think they're different types of player in terms of build, and Mane has played a little bit more as a centre forward in recent weeks. He also used to play as a number 10 for Southampton. In a sense, I think there's something of maybe the early Real Madrid Cristiano Ronaldo about him, when Ronaldo wasn't really scoring so many headers and 6-yard box goals. He was playing on the left and cutting inside onto his right foot and was very prolific from that position. But no, I struggle to really think of an equivalent for him. And that's absolutely a compliment, because the way that he plays with both feet so comfortably is very, very rare. And I think that's partly why he's so difficult to stop. I think defenders, sometimes you can see it, defenders don't know which way to show him, because he can shoot with either foot, and obviously that's so dangerous to play against.
Yeah, that gives the uniqueness of, I mean, to Son, I believe. And then let's talk about Conte. I mean, Tottenham, Tottenham, because I mean, as we said, Conte also was a manager of Chelsea, but he is not now in Tottenham. I mean, 7 months ago, Conte says this every time, every press conference. 7 months ago, you didn't dream about Champions League. He said this every press conference. But it's true. It's true. But he made it. He completely changed Tottenham's destiny in just 7 months. How do you think about it was possible, and especially in terms of tactics?
Well,